Welcome to the Warning Response Room. Here, I'll pretend and advise Kamala Harris about what she should say to the media with regard to the attacks that are being made against her by Donald Trump, but also the questions, most of them completely inane, being asked of her by her pent-up press corps who believes they have an entitlement to sit down every day and ask her questions from dawn to dusk. Let's get started. This is the Response Room.
In your last run for president, you said you wanted to ban fracking. Now you don't. You wanted mandatory government buyback programs for assault weapons. Now your campaign says you don't. You supported decriminalizing border crossings. Now you're taking a harder line. I know you say that your values have not changed. So then why have so many of your policy positions changed?
The first question is, how should the vice president handle the flip-flopping charges, specifically around the issue of fracking, which she was against and now supports? Well, there's a couple of easy ways to answer this question. I think the easiest is to simply say, I was the U.S. Senator from California, and in California, the people don't support fracking. She could say, as vice president, I appreciate how important fracking is to the economies of a state like Pennsylvania, a state like Ohio. She could say, I changed my mind. She could say, I think America's energy needs require that we drill more. There are 100 things that she could say. The most important part of any question and answer session is for the politician to appreciate there are no bad questions, only bad answers. But the disingenuousness of this question is extraordinary. Every single position that Rubio, that Lindsey Graham, that Ted Cruz, that every single one of these people held on every single issue, they've abandoned all of it. Trump attacked their wives, and they're on their knees for him. Trump attacked their fathers. They're on their knees for him. Lindsey Graham said the Republican Party would be destroyed if Donald Trump became the nominee. And he is his biggest sycophant. And these people are the people that are saying to the American people that Kamala Harris changed her mind on an issue. These are men, mostly, but some women, who have abandoned every principle, every position, free market people who now support tariffs, free market adherents who now support some of the highest tariffs in American history. There are no words, but none of this stuff with regard to her is remotely legitimate. And let me just say, there is a long history of vice presidential candidates who peel off from their presidents and go in their own direction. And Vice President Harris should do that. For example, when she gets a question about inflation, she should say, I wasn't the decision maker in the meeting. I was in the advice giving business. And I won't talk about the advice I gave the president other than to say I was in the room when Larry Summers said, if we spend this much money, we'll set off inflation. And what I've learned is we should listen to Larry Summers. And I do believe if I could go back in time, my takeaway from all of it would be a smaller budget, which would have set off inflation. I don't agree with President Biden on every issue. We're talking about the Harris administration, not the Biden administration. And that's how she maneuvers out of all of these issues.
Vice President Harris, you were tasked by President Biden with getting to the root causes of migration from Central America. We know that illegal border crossings reached a record high in the Biden administration.
They allowed criminals, many millions of criminals. They allowed terrorists. They allowed common street criminals. They allowed people to come in, drug dealers, to come into our country. Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? They're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
The question is about immigration and what should the vice president say in response to all of the attacks, from the Haitians are eating dogs to she's responsible for the border. She just needs to say over and over and over again, we will have a secure border. She needs to state the importance of a secure border. The American people need to hear her say that she believes the United States as a sovereign nation needs to have control of its territory, A, and B, 23 years after 9/11, needs to know who is in the country. The situation at the border was of Joe Biden's making, not Kamala Harris's making. And if necessary, she needs to throw the president under the bus. What went down happened on his watch. It won't make the fellas in the White House happy, but that doesn't matter because the only thing that matters is winning the election. And this is one of her chief vulnerabilities. The insanity of Donald Trump's overreach, Donald Trump's insane criticisms have made it easy. In the end, this is an issue about values. We are a nation of immigrants. She needs to celebrate immigration, the resiliency she's brought to the country. And the way to talk about this at the core is through the prism of e pluribus unum, out of many one. To talk about the meaning of send me your huddled masses teeming to be free that is embossed on the Statue of Liberty. This is all part of our creed, our American way of life. And she needs to defend the concepts of America from assault by this fascist maniac by explaining to the American people over and over and over again who we are.
I think that we think today was a good day, and it kind of was. But we have 56 days to go, and guys, we're still the underdogs in this race. It's tight.
What should Harris-Walz do now? The final 53 days of the campaign. The conventions are over, the debates are over. What next? Well, the short answer to the question is a great piece of advice from the great James Carville. When your opponent is drowning, throw them a bowling ball. Trump and Vance are drowning. What the Harris campaign should do is drop bowling balls on them from the bridge above until they sink forever to the bottom of the muck and their political nonsense ends. We are about to enter 50 days of madness, and there will be violence as the election is denied, as conspiracies are invented, and Trump does everything he can to illegitimately take power that the American people specifically have voted to deny him. Our society is built on the concept that it is the people who choose their leaders, not the leaders who choose the people. What Trump stands for is incompatible with how our society functions. And what that means is we're going to be tested as a country, as a nation, as a people in a rather profound way, because a majority of us are going to say no to a substantial minority. And a lot of that minority is not going to like hearing the word no. No, Donald Trump will not be the commander-in-chief. No, Donald Trump will not be the head of state. No, Donald Trump will not be the president of the United States. No, his fascist weirdo sidekick will not be the vice president of the United States. Stephen Miller will not be the attorney general. Corey Lewandowski will not be the chief of staff. None of these whack jobs and conspiracy theorists will be within 1,000 country miles of real power. The country is going to render that verdict. And we have a population that has been inured from the concept of no, that has been hypnotized into believing any election that their side loses is a fraudulent election. And the stakes of what that means cannot be overstated. Our entire society hinges on it, and it has overwhelmingly been covered cavalierly, frivolously, and with abject stupidity by the nation's most important news organizations, who corrupted themselves to cover the most corrupt man who has ever run for office in one of the most corrupt moments in all of American history, when the truth and the lie merged together out there on a horizon where nobody could tell the difference because of all the bullshit fed to the people on a minute-by-minute basis for 10 straight years. But hey, a lot of people made a lot of money. I'm Steve Schmidt. This is The Warning, And I invite you to subscribe on our Substack, on our YouTube channel. Follow us. Welcome to the community.